Good morning. This is the time for children. Today's scripture reading has some events that are kind of hard to imagine, specifically a man named Jacob wrestling with God. This comes from the book of Genesis, which is in the Old Testament. In this sacred story, Jacob has done some not so cool things to his brother Esau, and now he's afraid Esau is going to come for him. And then one night, a stranger shows up and fights him, and it turns out to be God. So I think it's kind of safe to say that Jacob is definitely dealing with some hard issues here. It's hard to read this story without picturing an image of Jacob and God wrestling, and many artists have created their own ideas of what this may have looked like. Let's look at some of those now. So on the screen now, you'll see three images that artists have created about this specific scene of Jacob and God wrestling. And some of them are very abstract, and some of them are very realistic, and you can really see what's going on, and others you'll have to look really closely. Some are done in black and white, some are done in color. Let's look at another set. These three are very different. So the first one looks pretty violent with a lot of red and blood that looks like on the page. That's kind of scary. And then the other two look more gentle. The last one, the watercolor, looks almost just like they're hugging instead of wrestling. So there are many different ways that you can think of to depict this really interesting scene in our sacred stories. So at the end of this story, God actually renames Jacob to Israel, and that means like struggles with God. And Jacob says he is in awe that he saw God face to face, and I imagine that's how any of us would feel if we had that same reaction, much less wrestled with God. How would you imagine wrestling with God would look like? It's an interesting term because wrestling is a word that we often use not just to mean a physical fight, but when we struggle with something internally, like how we go to school online, how to see our friends in a pandemic, how to create space for ourselves when we can't leave our house. These are real struggles that we wrestle with today. And I'm wondering if you can draw a picture of yourself wrestling with these things. What does that look like? What do these images look like? Some of them might look like what we saw today. Some of them would look very different. If you create a drawing that you'd like to share, I would love to see it and share it with others if that's okay with you. That can be a way, drawing can be a way to kind of get out some of our feelings about all the things that we are struggling or wrestling with today. So I hope you'll take the opportunity to do that. Okay, see you next week.